I'm new at this, I don't do this every day, and I kind of ran over the announcement, and it took a little longer than I expected. We'd set aside about an hour we wanted for our speaker, our AA speaker, to talk. And so I'd kind of like to get a group conscious in whether you'd like to have them kind of forget about the clock and run a little bit over. All right. Okay. Now introducing to you from Los Angeles, California, Bob E., our AA speaker.
I'm Bob Earl. I'm a drug addict and an alcoholic. And this talk may be shorter than an hour. It's highly possible I have consumed far too much water while sitting up here. Pet tables are embarrassing, you can't just slide out, you cannot slide out. And I spent my whole life trying to slide out, I just never maintain a low profile. That's the name of my disease, I'm very pleased to be here, and I'm really glad that I was asked to come share. I hate this fucking coat. You can edit the tape if you want. Some people... That stuff makes some people nervous. It personally doesn't bother me at all. I love to hear all the comments about language back and forth in Alcoholics Anonymous. You realize this is where we're talking about language. And I don't know, over the years for me in the program, I've come to learn one thing, and I really firmly believe it from the bottom of my heart. As long as somebody is trying to communicate to me from their heart, my soul does not care what words they choose to use. Doesn't care. The only thing that cares about the words that people choose to use when expressing themselves in Alcoholics Anonymous is my head. I will probably spend a portion of this hour talking about my head. I have found in sobriety it is the only enemy I have. Thinking has proved to cause me more pain in the 17 years I've been clean and sober than all of the people in Alcoholics Anonymous put together who I did not like when I got here. And it's amazing, too, because for a long time, now people talk a little more about recovery, and they talk a little more about sobriety, and you get some more speakers today that and they'll say, yeah, I drink and use, okay, now enough of that crap. Now let's talk about what's happening here and now, which is recovery. And I'm of that school. I don't, we all need to hear different things from the podium, but I personally, when a man with 20 years of sobriety gets to a podium, and he takes 55 minutes to tell me what he used to be like, and 5 minutes to tell me about what it's like now in recovery, I get uncomfortable. See, that bothers me, I want to hear about the 20 years of recovery. We all know we don't know how to drink or use. Okay? That's out front, we wouldn't be here. You knew how, if I knew how, if it worked, if it continued to do for you what it did for you before you got here, you wouldn't be here. All right? Now we can set that one aside, and now we can talk about recovery, because recovery is where I have found the pain. Recovery is where I've had to discover who I am. I have never, ever, one time contemplated taking my life until I got sober. Yours, I contemplated on taking before. I knew who the problems were and where they lived. That was never an issue. It's sober that I think about driving into concrete abutments at 80 miles an hour on the freeway, well, fuck it, I can't do it one more day, And the sad thing, after years of recovery, of doing all of that and listening, is I realize it's only my own little voices telling me that. You know, and one of the things that I have discovered in sobriety is that I am the last person who should interpret what's going on in my life. All right? I am far better off to leave it to you to interpret it than I am me, because I always interpret it wrong. See? Things that make sense to me are bad for me. I like them. I figure it out and say, that's good, I like that, I'll go get that. You know, I mean, I don't know about any of you guys, but I always, sort of get a schematic in my mind of what she should be like. You know? How tall, the education, the money, how well traveled, I'll go out and find it and then wonder, why am I dying? Because I thought this one up and it should be perfect. Why am I so miserable? I knew this is the kind of career I should have, and I'm in it. Why am I dying? It's like all these intellectual logic, all this intellectual reason I have applied to my life in sobriety. And the beauty of that is I forget where I am. I forget that I crawled into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. I heard some lady say the other night that she saw her father dying. I mean, my old man died from alcoholism. Okay, Man, that didn't get me here. What got me here was when I saw me dying. I looked in a window one day, and I was 26 years old and 130 pounds, man, and my pants were wet, and I'd been living outdoors for 3 months, sleeping on rooftops. I was the one that was dying. And I crawled into the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, certified mentally ill, and began to think. It's like it seems part of my disease is to pretend that I don't have a disease. Part of my disease is to go to Alcoholics Anonymous meetings, which are nothing more than an extension of the day room of any mental hospital anywhere. And pretend I don't belong. Geez, I'm okay. Sure sorry you feel so bad, I've been in bed for 3 days in tears, but it's nothing serious, Small nervous breakdown, it'll pass. I'll tell you about it when it's over, you see. I learned that's the kind of program my head preferred to work. My head wanted to go ahead, get into the crisis, die, get crazy, cry, crawl through the house, read the book, snivel, just go through all of it. And then I came out the other side, then go to the meeting and say, listen, I want to tell you what was going on last month. Right? I have found the honesty in Alcoholics Anonymous is if somebody just walks up to the podium and goes, oh my God, I said my mistake. Makes people very uncomfortable. Makes me uncomfortable because either I've just been there or it's coming on. And I never like to look at anything unpleasant about myself. I just discovered recently that and this is going to sound like insanity. Okay, well it is, but this is probably why it will sound like insanity. But after, working this program to one degree or another for 17 years, you think you'd learn something or a few things, which I'm sure I have, but I just learned 2 weeks ago that I can't stand criticism. Don't take it well at all. Remarkable. Anyway, I find that my mind, for me, is my enemy because it seems to be burdened with negativity. Yeah, it's never happy. It's never content. I heard somebody say it one time, and I really love it, that the alcoholic is a chronic malcontent. Now I don't know about you, but I am. My mind is chronically malcontent. I am never tall enough. I'm never handsome enough. My clothes are never good enough. The car is never expensive enough. I never earn enough money. I am never intelligent enough. My girlfriend is never pretty enough. She doesn't love me enough. My boss doesn't understand me enough. The house isn't big enough. The sunshine isn't bright enough. The fucking meeting is too small. It's not large enough. And then would come come in here and people say, hey, go on out there and have a good time, enjoy life, right? Certainly, you tell me how, when nothing is ever enough, you know, it's like, and I used to listen to this thing, you know, have you ever noticed that your mind, my mind is selfish, self-centered, self-seeking, petty, self-obsessed, sick, and self-gratifying. Now, the dangerous thing for me, see, all the rest of those are minor, because thank God the people in Alcoholics Anonymous who really love me will challenge me immediately on my self-obsession, or on my pettiness, or on my self-seeking, or on my selfishness, or on any of those things. They see me get into it, and they will challenge me on it immediately. But the one thing they can't deal with is the self-gratification, okay? You see, my mind needs no one to entertain it. Perfectly happy to sit home alone and think. Doesn't need a meeting. It will work out the problem on its own. Okay? In 43 years of living, it has never successfully worked out a problem by itself. All right? Truth. Maybe you have, okay? Maybe there's some of you in this room who are well-adjusted, rational, mature adults. Okay? Probably the Alateens. I unfortunately am not, you see. And it's impossible to make logical, rational, adult, mature decisions in one's life if one is not one. Okay? It seems that we have got to get a little assistance. And isn't it interesting that the last thing my mind wants, I'm not talking about yours, just mine, is assistance. It has never, ever, at any time since I can remember, asked for help. Doesn't want help. Resents help. Would appreciate it if you would mind your own goddamn business. It would rather die quietly. I am thoroughly convinced, beyond a shadow of a doubt, that my head, honest to God, believes that it can kill me and go on. Moving the water out of my reach before I really get in trouble here. And my head would like to really set me up for that one. Anyway, have more water. What the hell? You're strong, right? You know. Well, my head's always doing that crap to me. It'll put anything on me that I can't do, so it can then tell me how worthless I am. Okay? It's forever putting me into absolutely impossible killing situations and then saying, see, Flake? I told you were worthless. All right? The thing that began to help me recover from all this madness in Alcoholics Anonymous is one day I realized my head was saying a very interesting thing. It kept saying, why don't we stay home? Why don't we call her? Why don't we do this? Why don't we quit our job? And I thought, who the hell is it talking to? You know, I mean, here I am home alone by myself in an apartment, and it's saying we. You know, no dog, no cat, no bird, no animal, nothing breathing in the pad but me, okay? And it's saying we. And I began to think, aha, there must be another part of me that it's trying to convince. That's the only reason, you see, because if my mind, of and by itself, was the only power in my life, it wouldn't have to talk to me. I would be like an automaton or a robot. There would be no need for this sucker to speak to me. Okay? But there's another part. There is a soul. There is that part of me that can be spiritually guided. It is that part of me that allows me, filled with hate and hostility, willing to kill you, to sit in an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting and listen to a speaker. First time. wasn't my head. My head didn't want to go to the meeting. My head had 9 million reasons for not going to the meeting. But another part of me went to the meeting, eh? And another part of me stuck the hand up, said, yeah, God, man, are we ever one, you know. We will stay here for a while. And the head never wanted to stay. Never liked Alcoholics Anonymous. Thought most of what was being said from the podiums was bullshit. You know, hated the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Detested the people in Alcoholics Anonymous. I was 26 years of age, skinny, angry, and I got clean and sober in Pasadena, and that was not a winning combination. God apparently thought it was, because I'm still here. I'm here because people looked past my mind to that other part of me. I'm here because people had enough love. There was one lady in Alcoholics Anonymous, Helen, who, God, I love her, because when I got here, man, my mouth was so bad. I mean, bad. If it had less than or more than 4 letters, I did not use it, you know, because I just felt I couldn't really get my point across clearly and concisely and succinctly with more than 4 letters, you know. And after every meeting, this marvelous, beautiful, just an angelic older lady would come up to me and stand there with spiritual eyes and ask me how I was, and I would tell her, right, you know, just insane, you know, just mad, right, fire coming out of my eyes. And she'd smile and just, you know, be really polite and sweet and bless me and wish me well and go on her way. And the next night we would go through the same routine. And I would, you know, and she kept coming. And I started thinking the old broad has got, you know, got a thing for young guys, right? The dirty words turn her on, you know, it's like... My head will say anything it can to separate me from you if you can help me. My head will tell me anything it can about you to get you out of my life so that you can't help me. Think about that next time you're sitting around cutting someone up between your ears. It may just be the one person who can do the most for you. And your head is just, blam, dropping that steel curtain. Years later, I ran into her. We went to a convention together in Hawaii. And I had to know. I couldn't stand it anymore. Because about 12 years had gone by now or so. And finally I said, Helen, God, you've got to tell me. You must tell me. How could you possibly stand there and be kind and sweet and loving and gentle and listen to the hostility and the anger and the hatred and the vulgarity that poured out of my mouth? And she just smiled very sweetly, and she took my hand, and she said, it's simple. She said, I looked past what you were saying to what you are. I said, you see, when I had no idea what I was, when I had no idea there was another part of me, when you could have painted signs on my house saying there's more to you than your mind, quit listening, I wouldn't have cared. I thought that's all there was. I thought all I was my past, which wasn't pretty, and what was going on between here, which also wasn't pretty, which didn't make me much of a person. Not much of a person. And I knew 2 things. People don't love somebody that's not much of a person, and God doesn't help anybody who's not much of a person. My head used to just tell me, let's get back to 2 things first. I never know. Here we go. More of the children have just showed up now. They all want to talk, right? They're saying, okay, fuck him, and we're going to get equal time, right? He's talking all this weakness in God. We're going to get her to talk strength, courage. Takes guts to make this program. That's what my head would like me to believe, right? You know. I mean, I love that one. I always love to hear people in AA talk about strength. You've got to be kidding. Jesus. Oh. Got a problem, son. Pull yourself up by the bootstraps. You want potatoes, get a hoe. Turn it over to God and do the footwork. We unfortunately don't have a map for you. Lots of luck, but do the footwork anyway, you know. I love it. I mean, maybe some people forget where the hell we came from. You know, I know my head would like to forget where I came from, would love to forget. It does not want me to openly and publicly admit I'm chicken shit. Weak, inadequate, frightened, scared to death, and need you desperately. Need you desperately. Without you, there is no me, okay? My head doesn't even want to hear that, because it doesn't like you. Because if I deal on the other level, if I deal on a spiritual level, if I deal on a feeling level rather than a thinking level, rather than an intellectual level, you have more power than my head. See? The living proof of that is the fact that I am clean and sober 17 years. Okay? Because I am Looney Tunes upstairs. Okay? It's toys in the attic, man. Don't think up. Some of which are broken and did not mend properly. It's like I've had to learn that because my head thinks something doesn't make it so. I heard in church the other morning, the guy was beautiful, man. He said, 92% of the things we fear never come to pass. And I went, man, the sucker's right. You know, I spend all my life sitting around worrying about next week, next month, you know. I wake up in the morning worried. My head loves the morning. God damn. I mean, it is always there in the morning. I describe it this way because I know of no other way. It's like a vulture sitting on the headboard looking down, right? And you open one eye and it says, I'm glad you're awake. I want to talk to you. You ever get this feeling of lay awake all night? While the body slept, it just lurked in the shadows, waiting for you to wake up, right? And you wake up, if your mind is like mine, the first thing mine always says to me is, you're tired, you didn't get enough sleep. I may have had 14 hours, I may have had 4, it doesn't matter, it says the same thing. Well, you can't go to work today, not as tired as you are. Then it says, well, but you better go to work, because if you don't go to work, you'll probably lose your job. And if you go to work as tired as you are, you're going to screw up, and you're going to lose your job anyway. So now you got one eye open, you're unemployed. Then it says, now that you've lost your job, you haven't even got out of bed. You don't know nothing, right? But it does. It knows, man. It knows. Ask it. It'll tell you, you know. It'll say, now that you lost your job and you only got $413 in the bank, sucker, you're in big trouble. Okay? I mean, you're not going to last out the month. By now, if you have any kind of program at all, you're desperately trying to get into the nightstand to get the Daily Word or the 24-hour day book or something, anything other than what's going on here, you know. In the beginning, unfortunately, you probably just lay awake and listen to this sucker tell you how weak it is, right? And then if your mind is like mine, the next thing it will do is it will start running a medical scan of your body, right? Look for sore spots, right? You know. It'll always find one and say, uh-oh. You know what that is, don't you, dummy? That's a big C. You're going to die. How are you going to handle that? You're going to stay sober, go to meetings and talk about it, or you're going to be kicking shit and drink and hide out. And then they wonder why the sober alcoholic doesn't leap up to greet the day. Okay? You're unemployed, broke, and dying. I heard an old-timer one time really describe our insanity marvelous. He said, you know, it's like You take the average guy who walks into the company in the morning, secretary says to him, "John, the boss wants to see you." John walks on in, raps on the boss's door, goes in, sits down, finds out what the hell he has to say, splits, and goes in and takes care of it. You take one of us, an alcoholic like me, I walk in the morning, secretary says, "Bob, boss wants to see you." First thing I'm going to do, man, I'm going to go in the men's room, I'm going to lock myself in the stall and just sit down and figure out what he wants to see me about. Once I figure out what he wants to see me about, I figure out what I'm going to say to him, what I'm going to say to him, and why. Then I go in his office and I find out, of course, that's not at all what he wanted to see me about. So when we get all done, I go back to the John, lock myself in the stall again, and think all the things I should have said to him. Which shows that we can get a lot more out of a simple situation than the average person. I mean, why feel good? You know, why have a good time? Why the hell should we enjoy life when we can be busy thinking? A friend of mine says, life is what's happening while you're busy making plans. I find that mental illness is only compatible with sobriety and having a good time if you have a sense of humor. The first person I had to learn not to take seriously was me, and boy, that's a bitch. That's really hard. See, we've been listening to ourselves all of our lives. In fact, I'm the only one, for the most part, I've listened to all my life. I mean, I have assumed that it was because of information you gave me, but that's really not true. It's not because of information you gave me. It's because of my interpretation of the information that you gave me. The best things that have happened to me in sobriety have come to me out of what appeared to be the worst tragedies of my sobriety, without exception. Okay? I mean, it's like, that's like I could carve that in granite. See, because my head is always busy interpreting. I read a great thing in a little book once, and it really sums it up. It's judging. It's that need to judge, that need to figure out, that need to intellectualize, that need to decide that losing your job when you had nothing to do with the fact that you lost your job is bad. See, we're conditioned to that crap. It's not true. Who the hell cares if you lose your job? I believe in a God who loves me enough that if this door is closing, man, the next one's made of gold. Okay? Did not always, however, in early sobriety, believe in that God. Was a little concerned about God when I first got sober. People said, "Turn it over." You know, just let God come into your life. I thought, certainly, right. I knew that the dumbest thing I could do, man, would be stand out in the open somewhere and say, "Thy will be done." Okay? I knew what His will was for me. Didn't want any part of it, you know. My head told me that if I was lucky, if God loved me just a little bit, the best I would get would be 20 years sober, washing dishes in a men's 12-step house, celibate, talking about gratitude. It never told me I could have a good time here. It never told me I could make a lot of money in sobriety. It never told me I could be respected at what I do in sobriety. It would reach into my past and it would pull out all the negatives and tell me how bleak it was going to be. It would say, "Well, you don't have an education. They threw you out of high school in 10th grade. You don't have a trade. You were in every apprenticeship program in the construction industry and flunked out of all of them. Okay? Don't have a profession, don't have a trade, don't have an education. There's not much hope, man. You know, people tried to get me to go out and sell things, right? I remember when that one happened. You know, I was giving an AA talk one night, a guy came up, I was sober by now, a couple of years and totally insane. And somebody came up and said, "God, with that much enthusiasm, you ought to be a salesman." I thought, "Gee, it's a good idea, right? You know." Boy, I never it's a good idea anymore. I just duck the hell out of the way of it. My life makes no sense to me at all today, none of it, and I have never been happier. Never had more love, more beauty, more peace, more hope, and more thrills in my life than I do today, and I don't understand any of it. Thank God. It isn't necessary that you understand. So let me rephrase that. It's not necessary that I understand. If I tell you it's not necessary that you understand, your head will immediately throw over the wall. So it's necessary for us to understand. Maybe not him, but we've got to. Don't listen to him. He's still drinking water, for Christ's sake. And we know he's had too much. He admitted it. He can't keep his hands off the glass. I think obsessive-compulsive behavior leads with the grave. God. Anyhow, I read this marvelous thing about judgment, see, because I had no hope. I mean, I came from a background. I'm one of these people who lived in the streets. I ran the streets. I ripped and run in the streets. I'm the kind of person that always took down both ends of dope deals, which makes for a lot of enemies and a lot of firepower, and a lot of people get hurt, okay? That's where I came from. So I knew there was not going to be a God or love for me, because you can't hurt people like I hurt people and come in here and have anybody or anything, or particularly this God, whoever, whatever it was, care about you. So there was no hope for me, because my head always interpreted everything. It said, because you don't have an education, you'll never amount to anything. Because you don't have a trade, you'll never amount to anything. Because you're divorced, you'll never amount to anything. Because, you will never amount to anything. It always was interpreting, and that happened to you, and that's bad, and this is happening to you now, and this is bad, and this is happening, and this is bad. This marvelous story was about a little old guy who lived outside the village somewhere in Europe, and he had a son and a white horse, a magnificent white horse. And this white horse was just desired by kings because it was so beautiful. And they would come and they were offering large sums of money and say, let us buy your white horse. And the old man would say, no, I'm sorry. The white horse is not for sale. The horse is my friend. I cannot sell him. And the villagers would come to him and say, you're stupid, old man. You should sell the horse. Take the money and buy a bigger ranch and move to the city and live like royalty. The old man said, no, I cannot sell my horse. One morning the old man woke up and the horse was gone. He ran away. And the villagers all come running out to the farm, and they said to the little old man, you see, we told you, you should have sold your horse. What a terrible thing has happened. He has run away, and now you have nothing. And the old man looked at him and said, I don't know that a terrible thing has happened. All I know is that he's not here this morning. And the villagers went away shaking their head. About a week later, the white horse returned. And he brought back 6 others with him from the mountains. And the villagers ran out to his ranch and they said, you were right, old man, you were right all along. It wasn't bad that your white horse ran away. It was good, because he brought back more horses. And now you can train these horses and sell them. And the old man said, I don't know if that is good or not. All I know is he was gone and he is back and he has brought more horses with him. And his young son began to help him, about 16, 17, 18 years of age. He began to help him break the horses, these 6 horses that had come back with the big white horse. And the boy was thrown off one of the horses and broke both of his legs. And once again, the villagers ran out to his ranch, and they said to him, you were right again, old man. You were always right. It was not a good thing that the horse brought the 6 other horses back, because now your only son has both his legs broken, and he can be of no value to you. It is a tragedy. The old man said, I don't know that it is a tragedy. He said, all I know is that the horse ran away and he came home with other horses, and now my son's legs are broken. I don't know that it's a tragedy. And about 2 weeks later, the small country in which they lived went to war against a much larger nation. And the soldiers came through the countryside, gathering all able-bodied young men out of the villages to go fight this losing war at the boundary. Every young man who went into this army knew he was going to die. But the old man's son had 2 broken legs. He couldn't go. And once again, the villagers ran out to his place, and they said to him, you were right, old man. It was not a bad thing. We are going to lose all our sons, and yet you have yours because his legs are broken. And the old man said, I don't know that that's a good thing. He said, I only know that the horse ran away and came back with 6 more. And my son has had his legs broken. He doesn't have to go to war. You see, the judgments, the good, the bad, the right and wrong. The big book of Alcoholics Anonymous says very clearly and very precisely We must get rid of all of our old ideas, including our ideas of right and wrong. Must get rid of all of them. Boy, that's a bitch, you know? Try it. I mean, my head had me totally convinced the first 4 years I was sober in this program that the only way to get next to God was to become a good credit application. Right? If I could whip my life into a good enough shape that I could finally fill out a goddamn credit app without having to go to the space below, okay? My whole life was spent going to the space below. If I could ever get to that point where I've been on the same job 5 years, lived in the same residence 5 years, married to the same woman 5 years, banked with the same bank 5 years, I would finally be good enough for God. I believed that. Now you may sit and say, but I believed it. I, honest to God, believed it. And I spent the first 4 years of my sobriety doing the best job I knew how to do to become a good credit application. I should tell a story here. When I was 2 years sober and still very worried about God, I mean really worried about God, and I couldn't understand God, because everybody kept saying, God as you understand Him, God as you understand Him, God as you understand Him. And the minute you said to me, God as you understand Him, I got this mental picture of the old man, high in the sky, in a throne, with a book, keeping score. Okay? He knew and I knew we weren't even, and so there was no need for conversation or communication between us. Okay? But every now and then I would go to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting, and I would hear a speaker get up at the podium and they say, God, I got up this morning and, I got served with divorce papers and I lost my job and my car broke down and, and it was just bleak. And the IRS levied all my money out of my bank account. So I went home and I got on my knees and I said, Dear God, please help me, please help me, please help me. And by nightfall I had the old lady back, the IRS had returned the money and the car was running, right? Hey, you hear that, and you're struggling to make ends meet. You say, okay, I'll go home and pray. I really need this God. I'll try this one out. I got to try this one out, all right? I go home, overlap the drapes, always. Be cool, right? Can't have anybody look in and catch you on your knees, all right? It's just saying, man. It's what it is. It's the head, right? Oh, God. Jesus. Terrible. No, I say this because it's a point. Some people don't like it, but it's true. Did you ever notice when people pick up a gun to take their lives, they do not shoot themselves in the foot? They're trying to shut up the voices, man. Trying to shut up the voices. Thank God we have a program. Thank God my life is filled with people who will listen to my voices. I can talk to my friends with any of the voices I care to, and they just smile and go, Jesus, Bob's had another good idea. Watch him go, Anyhow, I go home, overlap the drapes, slip into my bedroom, kneel down, bow my head, fold my hands, and my voice would say, forget it. God will only work for the good people, and you're not one of the good people. Hang in there and do it as good as you can. So I went to an Alcoholics Anonymous meeting one night, and a guy told a story. And what happened out of this story was the first step for me of beginning to understand God. Okay, now all I'm telling you is my understanding. You believe anything you want to believe. I know what I say is true for me. Simple story about two men drinking in a bar in Alaska. One was a very religious man, the other was an atheist. Eventually their conversation swung around to God. The atheist looked at the religious man, he says, I don't believe in your God. The religious man says, why not? Atheist said, I gave your God a chance to prove himself to me once and he didn't do it. The religious man says, in what manner did you give God a chance to prove himself? Atheist says, well, about 6 months ago I was lost about 150 miles north of town in a blizzard. And I knelt down in the snow and I looked at the sky and I said, God, if there is one, I'm lost and I'm going to die. The religious man smiled a very knowing smile. He said, why, you must believe you're here. Atheist said, nah, some goddamn Eskimo came along and showed me the way back to town. Well, see, now my poor head finally lost round one because I was sitting in that meeting of Alcoholics Anonymous 2 years clean and sober, and I never called this outfit. I never dropped a dime in a phone and called this outfit. All right? I was sitting in a doorway in Pasadena dying. I had the phone number of Alcoholics Anonymous, and I had a dime, and I kept them hidden from myself. And I went to a payphone 50 times and dropped a dime in and listened to the dial tone and hung it up and walked away. You see, because I had never asked anybody for anything ever. And I was not going to call up some people in some funny little office somewhere that I didn't know, man, and say, I can't make it. Now I'll tell you about God and Eskimos because I'm here as a result of Eskimos, you see. One day I'm sitting in my dirty little doorway, man, and I hear this voice say, hey, what the hell's going on with you, man? If you ain't got no place to stay, you can come stay with me and the old lady. And I look up and standing there is this guy I've known for a few years. And when I was ripping and running, I used to go through some Robin Hood phases, all right? And him and his old lady and their 6 kids had been on welfare ever since I'd known them, okay? And I'd laid a lot of money on them. And so I look at him, and he is a perfect Eskimo. He was sent to me by a loving God, you see, by a God that understood my madness. My head, all through my sobriety, tried to keep telling me, fix yourself and God will love you. I should have known that was backwards. God loves me, turn to Him, and He will help me fix myself. Okay? You'll die. Keep telling me, fix yourself and God will love you. I should have known that was backwards. God loves me, turn to Him and He will help me fix myself. Okay? You'll die trying to get good enough to go to God around this outfit. You'll go stark raving mad trying to reach a point of mental illness so that you can deal with a spiritual deity. Yeah? So find your tune on a table leg, man. I look at this guy standing there, and he's a perfect Eskimo for me, and I'm going to go stay with him and his old lady for a very simple reason. There's no charity involved. Okay? The son of a bitch owes it to me to take me out of that doorway. It is a code, baby. We are both in the streets, and he's into me for a few $1,000s. It is his goddamn duty to take me out of that doorway. And he did. And he took me home. And that night I'm sitting on his couch, skinny and sick, shaken, run down goddamn apartment building, a one-bedroom apartment, wall to wall with cockroaches, him and his old lady and the kids. I said, God, one of these days I'm going to have to call that AA thing, man, and go do something about what's happening with me. He said, there's a girl down the hall goes to AA, Eskimo number 2. I swear to God, I did not know girls went to Alcoholics Anonymous. This was 1962, man. 1962, in the places I was, no one went to meetings that were girls. Only people who were old, sick, and crippled, it was part of their program. And if they ever wanted to see the free world again, they better drag their ass to an AA meeting. All right? I walked down the hall and knocked on the door, and God loves me. You see, because God understands my sickness. I don't have to get well for Him. He understands. Because He knew that if there had been an adorable, lovely little girl standing on the other side of the door, I would have lied. Okay? I would not have been able to help myself. I would have started lying before I even had a chance to think about it. I would have gone into some spiel about how my father was a chronic alcoholic, and I heard that she was involved with an organization that dealt with alcoholism, and possibly she could pass on to me some information which would be beneficial to me. If I could find the son of a bitch, I'd help him, you know. Standing there 130 pounds with wet pants, trying to give this speech, right? Now, God loves me too much. The chick that opened the door after I knocked on it was big enough to break every bone in my body. She stood about 6'2", 6'3". She weighed about 235 pounds. She had short black hair. She was built like a fullback. She had tattoos all the way down both arms and both legs, okay? She was half drunk. She had a half full pint of booze in her hand. This is my introduction to Alcoholics Anonymous, okay? I stand here tonight, 17 years, clean and sober since my first meeting, but don't tell me, be careful what you say to the newcomer. I looked at this big, tough, broad man, and I could talk to her because she was street people. I looked at her and I said, hey, I'm curious about this AA thing. She looked me dead in the eyes, God bless her, man. She said, AA will work if you want it, and I am not ready to quit drinking. Made sense to me. I took one look at her and said, Christ, if I was a big tough broad, I wouldn't quit either. You know, made sense to me. I knew that I would turn around and go right back out in the streets, man. If I had her size, her stamina, her muscles, I'd go. But I didn't. And so I could say to her, hey, you know what? I can't go on. I'm sick, and I'm tired, and I'm weak, and I can't go on. And she felt the responsibility for the sobriety she had had. An Eskimo. There's a flipper. Stuck me in a car, drunk, and took me to a meeting. You want to talk to me about the power of God? You want to talk to me about getting well enough for God to take care of me? No, man. Not when a flipper sticks you in a car drunk and takes you to an AA meeting. I heard that story and I said, hey, this is terrific. God works through people. God works through people. 2 years clean and sober, it finally dawned on me. The only instrument God has is people. And I said, terrific. And I went home to my little apartment. I felt better. If the kingdom is in me, it's in everybody, and people are his instrument. But then my head talked to me. It said to me, yeah, that's true. That's how it works. But there's 3 areas of your life, son, God wants nothing to do with. Like a fool, I said, what are they? I don't ask questions anymore in my mind. The only thing I ask my mind anymore is, what is your source of information? Because it doesn't have one. Never has. I don't know where it got all this information from. But Jesus, it's hysterical. So I said, well, what are they? He said, well, the first area God isn't interested in is the girls that you date. I thought, well, okay, yeah, I can buy that, right? You know, God and love and sex, and I go, yeah, that makes sense. God isn't interested in that area. I accept that. I said, what's next? He said, the next area God isn't interested in is employment, dummy. God doesn't care where you work. I thought about that for a minute. I thought, yeah, okay, that's true. That makes good sense. I don't care. God doesn't really care about where I work. I said, all right, what's the last area? I said, money. God doesn't care about money. God and money are not synonymous. And I said, yeah, okay, that makes sense. I said, now go ahead and, get it, right? Now that you know God works through people. Here's what my mind had just done to me, all right? I had begun to get an understanding of a loving God. And my mind had now said to me that employment, money, and women are the 3 areas that God isn't interested in. In the 17 years I have been clean and sober in a program of Alcoholics Anonymous, man, and I have sponsored a lot of people. I have never, ever in my entire sobriety gotten a phone call in the middle of the night from one of my babies who was crying and dying or putting his fist through a wall that the cause of his pain wasn't one of 3 things: employment, money, or women. Okay? The very 3 things my mind told me I must now take care of, I did. For the next 2 years, I went to work and I worked at it hard because I wanted God to love me and I wanted to be a good credit application. And I thought it out and I worked it out and I maneuvered and manipulated and figured and arranged and I did it as good as I knew how to do it. And 4 years clean and sober, approaching my 4th birthday, I went financially bankrupt through the courts. I was handling the money. They repossessed my automobile. Again, I was handling the money. I had been uncomfortably and not by desire celibate for a few months, and that was no fun at all. Okay? And I was working in a car wash for $1.25 an hour. I was handling employment. And the bummer about the car wash was I had started in soap at $1.35, but I broke out in a rash from the goddamn detergent. Had to be moved to the drive-off inn. So approaching 4 years of sobriety, I was flat broke, did not own an automobile, had a rash on both arms. My hemorrhoids were coming back from bouncing in and out off the hot car seats all day long. I was horny and not very happy. That's as good as I can do it. Okay? That's clean and sober with the 12 steps, right? What is the sign? Steps to the promises. Okay? I was trying to step to the promises. Unfortunately, one more time, I started in the alley. I spent my whole life in alleys. I'm always in the alley, right? Never on the boulevard where it's happening. Because my head always says, no, go down the alley. You know, we're used to alleys. We're comfortable in alleys. You know, the good people walk on the boulevard. You know, you and I go down the alley. Jeez, that's the fucking sick of alleys. I can't see straight. Anyhow, an Eskimo drove through the car wash and offered me another job. After a year on this job, I broke my back. Yeah, okay. Don't listen to my head. My head's we're running out of time here. I was approaching my 5th birthday in Alcoholics. Oh, screw it. See, I was thoroughly convinced. I kept looking around AA, and I became convinced that there was a secret here. Okay? That there was either a coded message hidden in the big book, or another step, or a secret goddamn meeting, or a piece of literature that you had to know the right person to get. But there was something going on, and I was 4 years on the program, and I couldn't find it. You know? Because people felt better than I did. You know? And they had more peace of mind than I had. And they had less sobriety than I had. I mean, you know, when I was broke on my ass in the car wash, man, I was borrowed $300-400 from my babies, for Christ's sake. You know, I mean, I was not what you would call an example of successful recovery. You know, my babies are coming to pick their sponsor up to take me to the meeting because he ain't got a car, right? You know. So anyhow, I worked on this job as a die catcher for almost a year, and I went back to a convention in Denver, Colorado, and I was there a week, and I had a great time. We got ready to leave this damn convention. We pulled out. See, I believe in Eskimos and the power of God, and I'm screw it. I'll slow down and tell this man, because I have almost died in sobriety. I've had just immense pain out of trying to fix me so that I would be good enough for God instead of letting God take care of it. I'm back in Colorado. We leave this clubhouse there, and after the convention, and we're in a brand new Dodge, and we turn the corner and the tie rod snaps. Brand new Dodge, okay? Guy had taken it to the gas station to have a tire with a bubble in it changed, and the Eskimo at the gas station had dropped it off the jack, and it had bent the tie rod. The tie rod broke. We pulled over the curb, parked. Man and his wife pulling right behind us, okay? Eskimo, all right? They'd been at the convention. Kind of guy I hated in Alcoholics Anonymous, right? I'd gotten clean and sober with 3,000 of them in Pasadena. Charlie Snowshoes, you know? Guy never drank that much, you know, never got that bad. One day they passed out in the boardroom of their corporation. It was embarrassing. They came to AA and got sober. Their lives were in better shape, drunk than mine was sober, you know. Had no communication with them at all. Figured they wouldn't know emotional pain if it ran them down in the middle of the street, you know. Drinking was their problem, okay? And I look at this guy, he's about 43 years of age, prematurely gray, lovely wife sitting next to him, their 3-year-old baby daughter. And I said, oh, God, Charlie Snowshoes, right? The car is about to what the hell, you know, I mean, Eskimo's an Eskimo, all right? Can't be too mistaken. We couldn't get the car fixed that day because it was new and had to be repaired under warranty. Now, listen very carefully to what this man said to us, because it's the basis of spiritual principles. The basis of spiritual principles. One my head hates, absolutely hates. He said, look, okay, you guys can't get your car fixed. We'll take the 6 of you, there were 6 of us, 3 guys and 3 girls. We'll take you all out to our house, put you up for the night, and we'll pack your lunch tomorrow and put you on the road back to California when your car is repaired. He's taking his brothers and sisters off the street, and he's going to house them and feed them. The basis of spiritual principles, okay? They got the car towed in, took the girls out of the house, came back, got us, we get out into southeast Denver, we pull into this massive circular drive in front of this big brick house, another new car in the driveway, and I'm moving in Charlie snowshoes, right? Walk through the house, a spiritual friend of mine, priced the furniture to the best of my ability. It was all terribly expensive, you know. I figured out, well, what the hell, right? That night, we're all sitting around this giant oak table in the kitchen, 8 of us having coffee, and the man looked at me and said, I was really glad to hear you talk about drugs at the convention. And I thought, what in the hell does Charlie Snowshoes in Denver, Colorado want to know about drugs? This is 1967, you know. Jesus. So I looked at him and said, why? And he looked over at his wife and he smiled a marvelous, gentle, very spiritual smile. He said, well, he said, Mother really doesn't like me to talk about this a lot. He said, but I'm a 3-time loser for drug addiction from California. Charlie Snowshoes, my first judgments are always good, you know. He said, and I went to AA, and Quentin and I went to AA in Folsom. He said, but it didn't take, man. He said, I came to Denver 2 days over 4 years ago, and I was 2 days clean. He said, I walked into the clubhouse in downtown Denver, which is a Skid Row clubhouse. He said, Mother here was working behind the counter serving food. He said, I remember what the people in AA had said about if you want what we have, and we're going to go to any lengths to get it, and I wanted what that lady had, and I knew that with her, I would be able to stay clean and stay sober. That doesn't sound like don't get emotionally involved, does it? I look at him, man, and my mind starts working like a computer. You know, his jacket is worse than mine, for Christ's sakes. I've got more time on the program than he has. I know he ain't got the job, right? He can't have the money. She can't have the money because she's working in the Skid Row clubhouse. I now know I have finally found the son of a bitch who's going to tell me what the secret is. He can't be living the way he's living, man, without stealing or knowing the secret. All right? And I looked at him and I said, okay, I said, look, I said, I know we both belong to the same fellowship and we both try and practice the same 12 principles in our life on a daily basis. I said, well, would you mind explaining all of this to me? And he looked at his wife and he smiled the same beautiful smile one more time. He said, Mother and I go to a lot of meetings and we take the 3rd step every morning. I was almost 5 years clean and sober. Almost 5 years clean and sober, okay? Heavy into AA activity, okay? I had never said no to an AA request because I was raised that way in AA. I had traveled 40,000 goddamn miles a year in institutions, okay? I helped newcomers that I hated, okay? Got out of bed when I didn't want to get out of bed. I used to make coffee and think about putting Raid in it. I hated it. I had done all these things for 5 years, and for the first time I heard the 3rd step of AA. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood Him. Period. Doesn't say minus girlfriends, it doesn't say minus employment, it doesn't say minus money, it doesn't say minus anything. It said made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God, period. I came back to California, and I went back to my little apartment, and I went to my job one day, and I came home that night, and I sat down in my bed, and one of the things that had been driving me crazy in Alcoholics Anonymous is I knew that if I could ever find the right prayer, God would understand me. If I could just get to be a good enough human being and I could find the right words with which to pray, then maybe He'd do for me what He was doing for the rest of you in AA. Because you weren't showing me your pain, so I didn't know you were hurting either. And I sat on my bed that night, almost 5 years sober, in absolute total desperation. I looked at the ceiling in my apartment and I screamed at the top of my lungs. I said, if you're not there, I am fucked. I could change the prayer for those of you who are sensitive, but it would diminish it a lot, you know? I knew if there was no God, I was going to have to die because I'd worked this program as good as I knew how to work it, and I had given it every ounce of energy I knew how to give it, and I had done as good as I could on the job, and I had done as good as I could paying bills, and I had done as good as I could in relationships. I had done it as good as I could do it, and I didn't know how to do it any better. I went to work the next day. I placed a brand new Allen head wrench into a brand new Allen head bolt, slipped. I went backwards against one of the furnaces and crushed 2 vertebrae in my back. Short time later, I'm laying in the emergency hospital, and the doctors are saying to me, okay, you can't stand for long periods of time. You can't lift anything heavy because my back has been broken a number of times. With my attitude, it was easy to get it broken. Anyway. And I'm laying there in the hospital, and all the doctors leave me in this little cubicle, and they walk out, and my head starts screaming. See, you goddamn dummy, you surrendered to God last night, you broke your back. Okay? But I was tired, man. I was tired. I was tired of making judgments. I was tired of interpreting. I was tired of figuring. And another little voice from down in here said, "Why don't you shut up?" And I thought, God, I think I will. You know, I'm really tired. I'm really tired. You want to ask me how I tell God's will? It depends on where the voice comes from. If it comes from up here, I try and ignore it. If it comes from down here, I listen. I swear to God, that's the truth. Anyway, I went about doing the things I was supposed to do. I decided it wasn't a bad deal. I filed for vocational rehabilitation, disability insurance, etc., etc., etc. I had to go through all the bureaucratic bullshit of civil service and all the rest of that crap. Gets you nuts when you're already nuts, right? They gave me aptitude tests 5 times. I came out 5 different things, okay? You know. They didn't know what to do with me. I didn't know what to do with me, you know. I came out a forest ranger, a classical pianist, a social worker, a psychologist, and something else. And I kept trying to tell this chick that was my counselor, I said, if you put the pianist in the forest, we got a problem, right? Finally, I got an idea. I don't know where it came from. I went in and I said to her, I said, hey, you know what? I said, I'd like to try and be a writer. This was in December. This was 6 months after I broke my back, and she almost fell out of her wheelchair laughing. She thought that was so funny, okay? Because I don't have an education. I have failed English ever since the 4th grade, and I'm a phonetic speller. I mean, she knew. She'd seen my paperwork. She knew everything there was about me. She thought it was hysterical. They were so goddamn glad to get me off their caseload, they paid for a correspondence course, okay? First thing I submitted to a studio, they bought. They bought. Came as a result of breaking my back, okay? 12 years later, I still write for a living. I'm very successful in what I do. I'm respected in what I do. I work for one of the hottest organizations in the industry, and they ask me questions. And when they have a big project, they come and we sit down and we talk about it. And I'm amazed, you see. The only other thing I had to learn is about love and about relationships and about caring, about you and personally and in my private life. Because my mind always kept telling me, if I could find her, it would be all right. Just find her. And my head knew what she looked like. It kept telling me. My head kept saying, one of these days you're going to round the corner and you're going to see her. She'll be standing there. And she'll be tall and blonde. And she'll be leaning against the fender of her white silver cloud Rolls Royce. She'll take one look at you and say, you're it. You're the one I have been looking for all my life. One day I was talking to a friend of mine a while back, and I said, you know what? This is a few months ago. I said, I'm finally starting to believe that the she that I have looked for all of my life with this great desperation is God. Okay? You see, because I'm weak and I'm inadequate and I'm frightened and I'm chicken shit and I'm scared to death, and all I ever wanted was for somebody to take care of me. Okay? So I decided I'm not going to look for her anymore. I will decide that she is God, and that is it. Now in my life, I have a lady who is not that tall, brunette, and drives a Datsun. I've never been more in love or happier. I've never had more communication with another human being. I've been married 4 times sober, which says, you know, I've been trying. God knows. I come to a convention now like this, and I feel like I belong. Okay, you might say, well, of course you belong. You're an addict and alcoholic. Bullshit. I came in Alcoholics Anonymous meetings for 9 years before I sat down in one and got comfortable, before I felt like I belonged, you see. So I believe that if anything at all I've got to share, if there's any message at all I have, it's based on my experience, which is I can't fix me. That there is a God who loves me enough, who is powerful enough, who cares about me enough, that he gave me you, right? I mean, a slipper, drunk, took me to a meeting. You can't intellectualize that one, you see. And 17 years sober, thank God for you and for God. Because everything I have in my life today, I never even fantasized in my wildest imagination. I was never a worthy enough human being to live the way I live, to have the job I have, to earn the money I earn, to share the love that I share with my lady. I never was a worthy enough human being. So I guess God doesn't require anything from me other than just sit down, shut up, and let him bring me here to you, and you will lead me to what I have. And I really love you, and God bless you, and thank you very much.
I can say is, wow. Jeez. Yeah, that's
Keep it short.
Yeah, I'll keep it short here. Wow. I just want to say, everybody stick around for the dance. The energy's going to keep going. I'd like to present this gift to Bob right now. It's a cardboard box.
Twice.
And Anne, thank you very much.
No, wait. Wrong one.
And Shannon's still here? I'll take it. Let's close with the Lord's Prayer. Thank you. You get a lot of buttons. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil.